The Free State ANC hosts a memorial service for struggle icon Winnie Mandela in Brantford, where she was banished by the apartheid government. The Democratic Alliance defends its newly elected leadership amid critique it lacks diversity. Well, 3 former SARS executives expected to appear at the Pretoria Regional Court today on charges related to the controversial so-called rogue unit. In your sports, South Africa have added a silver medal to their tally at the Commonwealth Games this morning. Very good morning to you and welcome to Newsroom. It's just gone at 9 a.m. Thank you very much for tuning in this morning. Just ahead, we check in with all our reporters on the ground, the latest in a series of events to be celebrating the late struggle stalwart Winnie Mandela. This and more. First things first, let's have a look at your top story. Well, leading at the hour, late activist Stompie Seipei's mother is expected to attend Winnie Mandela's funeral at the Orlando Stadium in Soweto on Saturday. Joy Seipei told the media yesterday that she has forgiven all those who were involved in her son's murder in 1989.
I went to the toilet and said, God, I ask that you help me to forgive, because this thing is going to consume me. Then I came across Mama Winnie in the toilet, and no one knew about that. The first thing she said to me was, this child looks exactly like Stompie. May God forgive me. And I have since forgiven Mama Winnie, because only God knows who did it. But I have forgiven all those whose names were mentioned in Stompie's murder.
Meanwhile, the ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule says misinformation from the apartheid government's Stratcom led to many people becoming victims of lies and deceit. Magashule says the ANC always knew that Mama Winnie did not kill Stompie.
Mama Winnie now goes to her grave with this image that she has killed Stompie and all that, and it's so bad. Because even if you get into a court of law, you say, I'm not guilty of anything. If charges have been fabricated, and we knew, because we have been working with Mama Winnie, we have been there all the time. We all ran away from the Free State, and we're there. We trained the Stompie and the others how to use an AK-47, how to use a hand grenade at Mama Winnie's place. There was no way a 14-year-old could become an informer. A 14-year-old could just be killed by Mama Winnie. This boy was very close to Mama Winnie, Nabom Palola and many others. My 14, all the 14s went there. Remember, even the ANC established a commission, a commission which was saying Mama Winnie was involved here. And this is where you can believe Julius, when she says Mama Winnie was one of the most powerful women. So to prevent her from any occupying any key strategic position in the ANC, just like Kresani, you had to smear her with this smear campaign. And the comrades know in the UDF, there was even a delegation, because I was part of the National Executive Committee of the UDF, and some people were sent to Comrade Winnie. The ANC in exile has to come in and establish a commission. And Mama Winnie has never participated in the killing of Stompie Seipei. We have explained it so a million times. We know her at the personal level.
Well, the ANC will unveil a wall of remembrance for anti-apartheid struggle icon Winnie Mandela outside its headquarters in Johannesburg this morning. The wall will allow members of the public to sign their own messages of condolences and support to Mam Winnie. Meanwhile, many people have commemorated the life of Mandela at an all-night prayer vigil in Mnangalizwe in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape. Atule Joker, Father report.
A moving night vigil in honor of the late struggle icon. People from different backgrounds descended here to bid the late veteran farewell. She was described as a fearless woman.
We are here to say thank you, Mama. You've done so much for the people of South Africa, in particular the women. So you've shown us how to be a strong woman.
Some say the sacrifice cannot be forgotten by generations to come.
As a national radio station, we saw it befitting that we come to this municipality, form this partnership to mourn the passing of Umama. We know that she dedicated her life to fighting for our freedom.
A number of commemorations have been planned across the country, including a memorial service in Mbizana. She will be laid to rest in an official state funeral on the 14th of April in Gauteng. I am Atula Joka, SABC News, Mthatha.
Well, in marking the countdown, what would have been Nelson Mandela's 100th birthday, the Nelson Mandela Foundation is holding a tribute event to honor the late Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. The event will also remember Mama Winnie's enormous contribution and the huge personal sacrifices she made for the achievement of democracy and to assess the work that still needs to be done. To recount all that, we go live to SABC's Ndokwana Nkatane at the Constitutional Hill in Johannesburg, where the event will take place this morning. Very good morning to you. Please put us in picture on what is happening currently this morning at Constitutional Hill.
Good morning, Shante. What I can tell you now is that final preparations are being put to yet another tribute memorial for Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. And as you can see behind me here, workers are now covering the chairs, the band and the sound. But as you can see already, we have a picture of Mama as a backdrop. And there we have the words Hamba Kahle, Nomzamo Winifred Madikizela Mandela. And so here at 10 o'clock, proceedings are expected to begin. The host is the Nelson Mandela Foundation and a host of activities. The program director is Unathi Msengana, but of course we have names like Anand Singh. He's expected to play a video that portrays Mama. We have Tokyo Sekhwala, who's a member of the board, Minister Jeff Khadebe, Minister Ayanda Dlodlo, but also the Nelson Mandela Foundation itself is expected to present itself. The keynote address today will come from Mama Grasa Machel, who you remember sent a message, a letter to Mama Winnie on her passing, calling her her big sister. But Shante, part of that program today will be the Soweto Gospel Choir, the acclaimed Soweto Gospel Choir. It'll be accompanied by a Grammy Award winning, as well as South African Music Award winning flautist. His name is Wouter Kellerman, and he joins me now. First of all, tell us the tribute that we'll pay to Mama today.
We're going to play Tula Baba for her, which we think is a really fitting song for her having gone. You know, we want her to sleep well.
But also, you have worked with the Soweto Gospel Choir. Here is a CD that's just been released, Symphonic Soweto, a tribute to Nelson Mandela. Tell us about that.
Yes, we worked for a few years on this, and it's to celebrate Nelson Mandela's centenary, because he would have turned 100 this year. So we've created the CD. It's myself, Soweto Gospel Choir, the KwaZulu-Natal Symphony Orchestra, and we took some struggle music, some well-known music that was linked to Mandela and Soweto, and we also wrote some new music, and we arranged it for flute, choir and symphony orchestra and soloists. We have Angelique Kidjo performing on there, for example, and the Ghanaian reggae singer Rocky Dawuni, and many others, Zonke and many others, Buskade, the Soweto-based string orchestra as well. So yeah, we
right. But also, if you can tell us the overall message that you'll be sending, what sort of person did Mama represent to you?
Well, for me, she was a fighter. You know, she really fought the fight, and I don't think we would have been here without her. And she supported Madiba. And Madiba's message is one of love, peace and tolerance, you know, which is what we trying to spread with this album that we made. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's Wouter Kellerman, as I said, Grammy Award winning flautist, but also South African Music Award winning artist of South Africa. This is just one of the big names that will be on this stage. We also have people like Thandiswa Mazwai who are expected to present their song here in honor of Mama. So here we'll be coming back to you because later on Shante will be speaking to the Chief Executive of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Sello Hatang. But preparations now getting underway and we'll be ready to get off at 10. Shante?
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for giving us the update there. We'll cross to and fro throughout the course of the morning. That was SABC's Ndakawana Ngatane giving us an update as to what's happening there at Constitutional Hill this morning. Well, with 5 days to go to the funeral of the late struggle icon Winnie Madikizela, which will be held at the Orlando Stadium on Saturday, mourners have not stopped to bring their condolences to the family. The Madikizela Mandela residence has become a hive of activity since she passed away on Easter Monday. Political parties, politicians, church organizations, as well as members of the public throughout the country have frequented the Orlando West home to be with the family. For the latest activities coming to us from Orlando West and Soweto, we're now joined live by SABC's reporter Manqoba Mchunu, who is outside the Madikizela Mandela residence. A very good morning to Manqoba. Of course, it's been a couple of days there with huge activities in honor of Mum Winnie. What's the day looking like this morning?
Well, indeed, Shante, we continue to bring you that live coverage here outside the home of the late struggle icon Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Of course, this today marking exactly a week since the news that the late struggle icon had passed. You recall that that news, of course, coming last week Monday, on Easter Monday in the afternoon. I remember the SABC was among the first to arrive here. In fact, when we arrived here at the house of the late struggle icon, there was barely no movement. There were no cars. There was a silence on the street. And of course, the SABC team being the first to arrive there, and we sat here and waited for about an hour until we started seeing some sort of reaction taking place here outside the home of Umama. And of course, ourselves at that time also being in disbelief of what had just happened, and of course, not believing really that this late struggle icon had gone at that time. Of course, just to give you an update on what's happening here this morning, you recall that, of course, the family last week had requested that mourners start arriving at the house at from around 11 a.m. And of course, that request being made after the family had said that they needed time to reflect on Mama's passing, as well as time to rest ahead of her funeral that is expected to take place this weekend. And of course, as things stand, it's relatively quiet. What we've been seeing this morning, though, are some of the members of the family members, or some of the people coming as far away as from Bizana in the Eastern Cape, where Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela comes from, and of course also coming to pay their tribute here outside the home. We're hoping to speak to some of them in a short while from now, but of course at this point they are still a bit distant from us, so we can't speak to them. We'll try and speak to them at a later stage. But of course, the security detail here outside the home has also been increased. It's been tightened. You can see the police officers now have set up barricades here outside the house, and this, of course, you'll recall, is due to the incident that had occurred on Friday, where there was excessive shooting outside the home of the late struggle icon. And of course, now police are keeping a very close eye here on developments here outside the house, and of course making sure that things go smoothly and safe. But of course, today we are also expecting that various memorial services will be held throughout the provinces as part of the 6th day of celebrating the 10 days of mourning that have been set up by the ANC as well as government. And of course, one of those memorial services will take place here in Soweto at the UJ campus, just not far from where we are, and that is expected to take place at 3 o'clock this afternoon. But of course, we're expecting visitors to start flocking in from 11 a.m. to come and pay their tributes that's how it's been the whole week. And of course, that condolences book also still here. It's there just next to the police where they are stationed, where people can come and write their messages of condolences to the family, where people can come and write personal messages to Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. And of course, on the other side of that barricade, that's where the flowers have been set up. That's where people can put their flowers, they can post pictures of Umama, and of course write message cards that they would like to relay to the family. And of course we'll be able to take you to show you more of the scene today, because we have another unit that we're using which enables us to move. But on my left here there's a marquee that has also been set up that people are being welcomed in, those especially who are visiting the family from areas that are far, like the delegation that's come from Bizana. They'll also be making their way into that marquee, which is just on this side. And that's where some of the church services have also been taking place in the evenings, and people coming in and to pray with the family and also to offer them some words of condolences. But we'll take you in our next crossing just to show you what it's like inside as well when we come back in the next crossing.
Thank you very much for giving us an update there, just outside Mam Winnie's home in Soweto in Orlando West, as well as the memorial service details that are taking place this morning. Bizana local municipality down in the Eastern Cape are also celebrating Madikizela Mandela at a memorial service. Of course, Madikizela Mandela was born at the Bongweni village in the area. President Cyril Ramaphosa is set to be the keynote speaker at the event. SABC reporter Zimkita Manglana is in Bizana with the latest. Very good morning to Zimkita. What is the situation like in Bizana ahead of the provincial memorial service, which I believe is expected to take place tomorrow?
A very good morning and a warm welcome to Bizana this morning. Shante, as you can see behind me, there the tent, the marquee that is expected to host thousands of mourners that are expected to gather here tomorrow morning ahead of the provincial official memorial service in honor of the late icon Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Preparations are underway at this stadium here in Bizana. A lot of activities have been taking place since the passing of this icon. A lot of people saying that they want to honor her for the hard work that she's and contribution that she's taken part in fighting for the freedom of South Africans. But now we're going to speak to the mayor of Bizana local municipality, Ms. Daniswa Mafumbata. A very good morning and a warm welcome to this broadcast this morning, Mayor. A lot of preparations are underway, but before we get to the preparations, let's talk about your personal experience and your memories about this international icon, Umama Madikizela Mandela. You are in Zalelwane yalapha eBizana. You are a resident of this area. What do you remember about her?
Good morning, Zimkita and the viewers at home. When I'm going to speak about Umama Unomzamo Madikizela, is during her time, I was very young, but I still remember that he was married with Utata Nelson Mandela. Our mothers, they were busy singing for the during the preparations of the marriage. And also one another thing that we remember, Umama, she was a fighter, and also she was somebody that makes his mind. And also, if you talk about Umama at Mbongweni, Kwampis, in the area where we grow up, we know that Mama, as we're having the electricity now, it's because of Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela.
Sorry to cut you there, but you do not only have Umama Madikizela Mandela as an icon here. You also have O.R. Tambo, but you've got very little to show here in Bizana as proof that you have these people that fought so much for the democracy of this country.
Yes, Zimkita, let me first agree with your statement. But let us say that during the preparations of the centenary of O.R. Tambo as one of our stalwarts. There was a lot that was done by the government, because if you can witness with myself, if you are going at the front of the tent, you will see that there is a big monument in front that shows that we were honoring O.R. Tambo, and also there were some electricity in one of the in some of the villages in the area in the honor of O.R. Tambo and also Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. But we can say it's Zimkita. We know that the development, it is very slow in the area, and it is not supposed to be like that, because this area, it is the area where the stalwarts, they are born and bred here. But we are saying we as the people on behalf of the people of Mbizana, we have the hope that as the president, it is coming tomorrow, so it's going to see the area. Then when they are going back, they are going to fast track the development in the area.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Well, the president of the country, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, is expected to be the main speaker here when that memorial service takes place. At Mpongweni village, we are expecting to see a lot of people visiting that family there as well, giving prayer services to say that they are mourning the death of Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Well, that's all we have time for now. It's back to you in Johannesburg.
Thank you very much. SABC's Simkita Mangana in Bizana giving us the details around the memorial preparations down there in the Eastern Cape. Continuing with our coverage of the memorial services throughout the course of this week, marking down the countdown on what would have been Nelson Mandela's 100th birthday. The Nelson Mandela Foundation is currently going to be holding a tribute event to honor the late Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Let's go to Takawana, who is on the ground for SABC. She is with Selo Hatang. Very good morning to you once again, Takawana. We hand over to you as you take us through this morning's proceedings and Constitutional Hill.
Good morning again, Shante. As you can hear behind me, the Soweto Gospel Choir are clearing their voices as the sound is getting ready for them to present their tribute to Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. But as you've said, here to talk to me about this event, why it was put together, is the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and that is Silo Hatang. But I see that he's still trying to get his ducks in a row and to talk to his people. He'll be here with me in a moment. But if I can just go through the program to say that part of what is expected here is for Minister Ayanda Dodo to arrive any moment now. There's a condolences book that's being signed here, and that condolences book will be signed by everyone who will be coming here to Constitution Hill. Also expected to deliver an address is the CEO of Constitution Hill. They have in partnership put together this event. And so, Ntate Hatang, you have sent a message about Mama Winnie. In that message, you go beyond saying we should remember her. You say that we should emulate her, and things like children dying in pit toilets, women being humiliated should not be happening in the South Africa of today if we are to honor Mama.
I think as we remember Mama today, we should all be sitting back asking ourselves, how can I be a better South African, a better active citizen who helps bring South Africa that she wanted, a South Africa that cared about the most vulnerable. A story that I shared recently on Morning Live was about how when I called her about the plight of Palesa Madiba, the UJ student who disappeared, that she not only sent a message, she went herself to the Madiba family to offer a shoulder and to say we stand firm behind you in our quest to find Palesa. I called her when Palesa's remains were found and she was shattered. And I think in her honor, we must then be asking ourselves, how many more children should disappear? How many more should be falling in pit toilets? How many more should suffer from stunting? How many more shouldn't go to ECD centers while we watch? And I think we should then be saying, because she cared about those kind of children, she cared about those kind of people who were deeply vulnerable in every way, we must then deal with poverty, inequality, and racism. The kind of racism that is attacking her personality, we should then be saying we stand firm against that kind of racism.
Talk to us about the theme that has coined this particular tribute. There are so many happening around the country, especially today. How is this one different?
I think this one is about ensuring that we know that Mam Winnie traveled with our founder for a long time. She was on a long journey with him, and through her letters, through their letters, some of the letters which we will publish sometime the next month, in fact, in May. We are hoping South Africa will then see a different side to Mam Winnie, a side that was vulnerable too, a side that sat in a prison cell, feeling that she couldn't be there for her children, she couldn't be there for her community, she couldn't be there even for those who she cared most about. And I think for all of us, we stand firm again saying this kind of remembrance is the one that we open into South Africa and saying, come and enjoy the bit that we know of the two, the bit that connects her to the 100 days before Madiba's birthday. 2018 is forever going to be coined as a special year for many reasons, but one being that it is Madiba's centenary, but that it will mark forever the year that she passed on, to join him and many others on the other side as they watch us make a difference this side.
But I guess we cannot ignore the fact that you are bringing to this stage also the woman who filled Mama's shoes in Tata's life, but also stood side by side with her when Tata passed away, and that is Mama Graça Machel.
That's what we're proud that we're going to have today. We honored that Mam Graça Machel has agreed to come and honor Mam Winnie this way. We also honored that the Deputy Chief Justice will also be here to honor Mam Winnie. We're also going to have people like Ntate Tokyo Sehwale, who journeyed with her. We're going to have people like Nikki Webikicha representing the Board of Trustees of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. All these people will be here saying, may her legacy never be forgotten. That those who are still to be born must remember her for the lioness that she was. The one who stood firm, pushing back police when they were trying to harass young people, when they were trying to have dogs bite young people who were struggling just for human rights. When she visited my township of Kuma in Klerksdorp, in the northwest, she came over and she said, you know, the last time I was here, this stadium was exactly the same. May I revisit again, and when I come back, it will be developed. Fortunately, the municipality listened and it responded. But I think what I'm saying here is we had a person who was attentive to detail. She paid attention to detail, and she tried to make sure that people made a difference in the lives of the vulnerable. Let's deal with poverty in honor in this year of Madiba's centenary.
Thank you so much. That is the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Sello Hatang, as we get ready for this event to get underway around 10 a.m. And as I said, big names, Thandiswa Mbazwai, Anand Singh, Soweto Gospel Choir will be gracing the stage behind me as the event gets underway at 10 a.m. Shante?
Let's leave it there just before we cross back to you within the next couple of moments or so. Let's cross now live to SABC's Mangoba Mkunu, who is in Orlando West in Soweto. Of course, we will be crossing to him and more of our reporters on the ground. But first, they will take a short break.
when life takes a different turn.
If I didn't eat the spit, he was going to evict me.
Your will to persevere is ignited.
I'm not a professional speaker, but I'll try my best to give you a word of inspiration.
He was just trying to provide for his family.
If you can't accept it, change it. If you cannot change it, accept it.
And a new story begins.
Made a resolve to myself. I'm learning something new.
Upilong, every Friday at 5:30. Be part of the life-changing journey.
Well, dozens have been wounded in clashes between the UN peacekeeping mission in the Central African Republic and the armed militia calling themselves the Self-Defense Forces. France has called for an urgent UN Security Council meeting today following an alleged chemical attack that left dozens dead in Syria's rebel-held town of Douma. Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg is expected to appear before US lawmakers tomorrow as pressure mounts for the adoption of new regulations for social media platforms. With just 5 days to go to the funeral of the late struggle icon Winnie Mandela, which will be held at Orlando Stadium on Saturday, mourners have not stopped to bring their condolences to the family. The residence has become a hive of activity since she passed away on Easter Monday. Political parties, politicians, church organizations and members of the public throughout the country have frequented the Orlando West home to be with the family. Well, for the latest on the activities, specifically from Orlando West, we're joined by SABC's reporter Mangoba Mqunu, who is outside the residence. We believe that he is with some royal guests there this morning. Very good morning to you, Mangoba. What's happening there this morning?
Well, certainly, Shante, as you've just said now, various dignitaries continuing to arrive here at the home of the late struggle icon Winnie Mandela. A short while ago, I did indicate that I'm seeing a delegation of traditional leaders that have arrived at the home, and I did indicate that we'll try to speak to them. And of course, we have now with us Inkosi Cinani, who represents the Queen Somabuza Sikawu of the Amapondo Kingdom. They came all the way from Kaugeni, Elusigisigi. Nkosi, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to speak to you. First of all, certainly the passing of Umama Winnie Mandela has come as shocking news and really sad news for you as people of the Eastern Cape.
Good morning. Definitely, it was a sad news. We are here now to the family to come and say we are with them in this sad time. And we are also not happy about the passing on of this icon. She's known to us, she's known to the Queen as well. We are representing the Queen Masopuza. This is a delegation from Kaugeni and Ngaleni who are here to the family to come and say we are with you all the time. Winnie Mandela is known to us, and she's originally from Emambondweni.
Okay, tell us about Winnie. You said that the Queen herself does know Winnie. I mean, what sort of a relationship did she have with the Queen, and how has the Queen taken the news of her death?
Well, the Queen was so obsessed about the death of this icon. She is well known to us even during the time when the King Tandizulu was in and out of the court during the Ntapo Commission. Mama Winnie was always on our side, giving advices and encouraging us to continue with the court cases. As we are still now, she is leaving us at the very moment when we were needing her the most. So we are not happy as well on his passing away.
Okay. And with regards to the message that you've now brought to the family, what are you going to say? What is it that you're hoping to relay to the family?
To the family, we are here to say, calm down, this will pass. We are with you. The Kingdom of Amambondo is there to give support as we were doing to your mother. Even to the family of Mandela, we are with you. Calm down. Please bury Winnie Mandela with a very good dignity that she deserves.
And you've said that Mama Winnie comes from the kingdom of Amambondo. How have the people, the subjects of the Queen, have taken this passing of Mama? What have they said about it?
They are so sad about the passing on of this lady, but they say nothing that we can do. She has played her role within the Pondo kingdom. She is known. She has been in and out Amambondo. She is known. She represented Amambondo all over the country. That's why we are here now as Amambondo, to say to them, we are with you.
Okay. And especially another thing that has come prominently from the people who have been speaking is how she has empowered women as well in the country.
She has empowered women a lot at Mambondweni, a lot. So most of them are so sad to such an extent that they think maybe it's going to be the end of the road. But we say, no, this is not the end of the world. Struggle must continue. Yeah, whatever she thought you must continue doing it. Yes.
Thank you very much, Nkosi Lapho Ucinani, representing the Queen, Somapuza Sikawu. Let me go and speak now to Chief Gwadiso of Engeleni, not far from Emitata. Chief, you also brought a delegation here to pay tributes to the family home of Mama Madikizela Mandela this morning.
Yes, indeed. We are here to pay our respects, to say to the family, this pain is not only theirs, it is also our pain. Their loss is also our loss. Mama Winnie was the only living icon we have as Amambondo. But besides that, she has worked very hard. She has, in effect, when you look at her history and what apartheid did on her, it is a miracle that she died still a strong person as she was.
And in what way would you want the people from the Eastern Cape to remember Umama? What is it that you want to hold for them to hold dear when they think of Umama?
It is the commitment that she had. It is about looking for the poor. She was always where people need help. She was always there. During the time of bitterness, she was always there. She must be remembered for caring. She was caring for everybody, even if the person she does not know, she was caring for everybody. That is what we need. One of the things that we should learn from her is that caring.
Okay, thank you very much. That was Chief Gwadiso also speaking to us there. Some of the traditional leaders have gathered here outside the house this morning, and of course we expect various dignitaries to continue arriving as we mark a week after Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela has passed.
Thank you very much for that, Mangoba Mkunu for SABC News, giving us all the details around the memorial arrangements in Orlando West in Soweto around Winnie Madikizela Mandela's funeral and the build-up to that come this Saturday. look now at some other news this morning. Democratic Alliance leader Mmusi Maimane has urged party members to continue being activists in their respective constituencies. He was addressing the party's two-day elective congress in Pretoria. Maimane also reiterated that the party belongs to all South Africans as it embraces diversity.
I have a genuine interest of making sure there are women in all our structures, in all our leadership places. And I actually think we can't be quickly dismissive of the fact that in provinces we've also seen the election of great female leaders. I think we mustn't be quick to just simply say, no, that doesn't matter. We also mustn't be quick to say that in executive office we have a lot of female mayors. So, yes, do I want to set a threshold here and say, well, we'll have so many women, 50% must be women, 50% must be that? I can't. I don't subscribe to quotas. Do I want more female leaders? Of course I do.
Well, the Democratic Alliance has defended its newly elected leadership following critique that it does not reflect South Africa's demographics and that it is male-dominated. Re-elected DA leader Mmusi Maimane says there are a number of women elected into leadership positions in the provinces. Meanwhile, the party has rallied behind Nelson Mandela Bay Mayor Athol Trollip, who faces a vote of no confidence in the council this week. The party approved a recall clause during its elective congress over the weekend, paving the way to recall Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille. The amendment does allow for those accused of improper conduct to make representations and go through a disciplinary process. Maimane also called on all members of the party to hold their new leadership to account. A Gauteng Democratic Alliance Member of Parliament, Gana Makajule, is in studio for an overview of the Congress. A very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Shanti, and good morning to the viewers.
Firstly, let's just discuss the DA saying that it remains the unifying force in South African politics. Are you still in agreement with that, specifically looking at now the new leadership?
Shante, I'm still in agreement. I believe as an organization, as the DA, we are the most diverse organization in the country, but that doesn't mean that the work stops insofar as continuing in our diverse and ensuring that all South Africans see themselves in the DA. So this is a work in progress. That's why as Congress, we adopted an addition of diversity in our constitution as one of our core values, because this must remain a constant reminder to us that what we do in politics, we are not doing it for ourselves, but we do it for all South Africans.
With that being said, if you have a look at the new leadership, yes, many of which have been re-elected, it does not necessarily reflect all South Africans. It doesn't reflect all women, black women, doesn't reflect black males, Indian males, colored males. So how would you say that?
Shante, the Congress has made or has elected leadership. You know, obviously there are wishes that I would have had. You know, I would have liked to see more women elected into position. But now Congress has made a decision. Congress has elected the leadership. Now we must rally behind the leadership. You know, the wishes of Ghana now do not matter much. You know, we can work to correct it. We can work to ensure that all our structures represent the diversity that the South Africa has to get. And for me, you see, diversity is not about been counting to say, all right, there's no Indian or there's no colored or there's no this, but then it's to say, do South Africans see themselves in the DA? And there's work to be done. I won't sit here and deny that some of the issues that members of the public are raising when they reflect on the leadership are not correct. So, but it's important for us to continue working on it. For me, what this says is that we need to continue working on this. We need to ensure that when there are elections going forward, our members and the delegates, they put diversity. That's why it's important to have it in the constitution, that it becomes paramount in the mind as we head to elective meetings and elective congresses.
Definitely. Well, we've asked our viewers this morning, do you think the DA's new leadership is reflective of the diversity? It claims 78% of over 380 votes that have come in are saying no. Only 22% are saying yes. So that's just our poll that we've been running this morning, just about the results there that have been coming out of the Congress. Let's move on to one of the other issues that was brought up by now the re-elected DA leader, Mmusi Maimane, specifically with regards to the issues of land. You know, your white membership, membership within the DA might be landowners, they might be farmers or private owners. How essentially with regards to land and their stance on this going forward, is specifically with the DA saying that they want it to be done equally and are not calling for the nationalization of land and of course land without compensation?
Shante, what Congress resolved is that the failure of land reform, land restitution and land redistribution is not the failure of the Constitution. The failure is because we have a government that decided that the best way to address the land reform and land restitution, it's a willing buyer, willing seller. And we have said over a time that that particular policy is not the right instrument if you want to achieve land reform in the country. You need to use the instruments that the Constitution affords us. You see, when people discuss this matter, they like going into the Constitution to say, no, we need to change the Constitution. You can't change something that you haven't tested whether it works or not. And that's why the Congress was resolute in saying that we want individual South Africans to own land. We don't want the state to own land on behalf of the people. We want Shante, we want the Ghana, we want Makumalo to own a piece of land. And that's what for us means. And the way that we believe that can be done is through a proper implementation of Section 25 of the Constitution as it sits.
So you're totally opposed to expropriation?
We support expropriation as contained in Section 25 of the Constitution. We are against the expropriation of land without compensation. Because once we get there, nothing says that that particular land that today was given to a Ghana, tomorrow will not be taken and given to someone. So we want people to be individual owners of their own land.
Do you think that this particular stance then speaks to the poor membership of the DA?
When the Constitution was crafted, it was crafted with the poor people in mind. Unless if we say the Constitution of South Africa is anti-poor, which will be a dangerous thing to say. I think many of us will agree that this Constitution, which was fought for, so that individual South Africans can have equal rights, was agreed to by all of us to say this will be a guiding document. And I'm saying Section 25 of the Constitution is clear on expropriation of land. Now we need to ask a question to why the government has not expropriated land. For the last 24 years, this government has not expropriated land for the benefit of the poor masses of this country.
Yeah. You know, for a long time, analysts have often accused the opposition, of course, the DA, of capitalizing on the ANC's failures and the ANC's faults. Do you agree?
You see, we are in politics to serve South Africans. If the current government is not doing right, if we believe that what they are doing is to steal from the poor, then we cannot sit quiet and say, no, we are not going to raise it. If there's good that the government is doing, we are going to support it. But if they do bad for the people of this country, we are going to stand up, because our existence in politics is to serve South Africa and is to exist for the interest of South Africans. So we don't exist only to oppose the ANC. You know, we exist to serve South Africans. Our constituency has never been the ANC. Our constituency is South Africa, and will continue to work to serve all South Africans.
With that being said, let's discuss the new leadership, yes. Specifically with regards to the gender disparity. Yes. And we also saw that, you know, on social media yesterday. Yes. I was covering the Congress. You know, a lot of people spoke up about that. Yes. That, you know, out of 8 electives, only one is in a power or a position of leadership. What do you make of that going forward? And, you know, with the whole notion of being a unifying force and being a whole representative.
Yeah, like I said earlier, Shante, I would have liked to see more women elected into leadership position of the DA. That there was only one woman elected is not something that I would say is ideal. But I must respect the outcome of Congress, and I must rally behind the elected leadership. Obviously, this for me, it tells me that there's work to be done insofar as ensuring that when we go to Congress, we not only think of electing only male into leadership. We need to elect and women, because I'm very convinced that the DA has got a lot of capable, strong women. You know, if I look at the provinces, there are strong women across the board. What we need to ensure now is to that when we go to congresses, they are elected, so that what becomes of our leadership is where South Africans can sit. And when they look at the DA, they must see themselves. If there's a section of South Africans that says we don't see ourselves in the DA, for me, it says, Ghana, you must go and work, because you haven't reached an ideal state where South Africans can see themselves in the DA. So I take the criticism, the reflections that South Africans are making on this to say, this for me, it says I must go and work and ensure that going forward, all South Africans see themselves, their hopes and aspirations represented in the DA.
Another thing that was discussed was what has been dubbed now the Delil clause.
Yes.
Many have also seen it as more of a draconian stature that has now been put forward to somewhat perhaps silence Patricia de Lille or other members. What do you make of that?
There's nothing draconian about the recall clause. It's not a Delil clause. And
it's been dubbed in the media as a Delil clause.
Yes, it has been dubbed by other people.
Yes.
And I need to make it clear that this particular clause is not applicable retrospectively. So for someone that, let's say Delil, this particular one, the federal executive is not going to meet tomorrow and say, all right, now we've got Congress has amended the Constitution to include this clause. Therefore, we can apply it to Mayor Patricia de Lille.
Yeah, but you look at the timing as well.
No, you must accept that we are becoming a part of government. This particular clause seeks to say, how does the DA relate to its members that are serving in executive office in various governments? Before then, we didn't have a proper mechanism that was in the Constitution. This has got very little to do with Delil. It's to say, how do we deal, or in an instance where a member that is representing the DA in an executive office is doing something that it's not in line with the DA policies. How does the party handle that particular aspect? So this is nothing new. It's just to say how we relate to our governments and the people occupying executive office.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us here in studio this morning. Gauteng Democratic Alliance Member of Parliament, Makashule Ghana, was in studio for an overview, of course, of the Congress, the two-day Congress, as well as the resolutions and the outcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Shanti.
Let's have a look now at some other news. Well, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg is expected to appear before the US lawmakers tomorrow as pressure mounts for the adoption of the new regulations for social media platforms. Well, the 33-year-old is expected to face a grilling from a Senate panel, after which he will appear in the House of Representatives come Wednesday. It comes amid a raft of inquiries on both sides of the Atlantic following disclosures that data on 87 million users was hijacked and improperly shared with Cambridge Analytica, a British political consultancy working for Donald Trump's presidential campaign. Well, lawmakers also signaled that they intend to get tough on Facebook and other online services over privacy. Of course, that's a wrap-up of some of your news. At least for now, we will continue to give you live updates around the memorial services taking place all over the country with regards to the late Mum Winnie Madikizela Mandela. For now, though, let's cross over to weather. Sihle is standing by.
Thank you very much. And let's take a look first at your satellite image showing us here over the central interior. Once again, we're seeing lots of cloud development here in places like Angola, the DRC, and going towards the eastern parts. And of course, here in the southernmost parts, we're seeing a moisture being drawn from Namibia going towards central parts of southern Africa. And we're seeing it moving slowly and gradually towards the eastern parts. So if you're living around the coastal areas in places like the Eastern Cape and of course southern parts of KwaZulu-Natal, you may expect some rain later on in the day. This is what we're expecting it to look like. Scattered showers here over the central interior in places like the Northern Cape, the Free State, including the Northwest Province, while isolated showers expected for the rest of the Northern Cape, including a place like the interior of KwaZulu-Natal and southern parts of Gauteng. Otherwise, only partly cloudy skies are expected from Mpumalanga Province and the most of the interior in KwaZulu-Natal, while in the northern parts, now in Angola, we're seeing these scattered showers, including parts of Namibia. Here in the northern parts of Mozambique, we are expecting some scattered showers. Otherwise, tomorrow, this is tomorrow's picture. We continue with these rains here over the central parts of the country, excluding most of Botswana and Zimbabwe. But in the northern parts of Zimbabwe, you may expect some isolated showers for today and tomorrow. As you can see, this is the band that I was talking about. The moisture is being drawn in from these areas, moving down towards the southern parts, and it's just gradually moving towards the east. That is your trend for today and tomorrow. Taking a look at your temperatures, we do see that over the interior, we have cooler temperatures, highs of 24 there in Dar, including Sutherland, with that rain possible later on in the day. But earlier on in the morning, it started in places just to the north of Uppington, in places in the northwest, and then moving towards the central interior of the Free State. Hence, we're seeing lower maximum temperatures because it will be cloudy for the whole day, especially in places like the Free State, where we're seeing highs of 23 there in Bloemfontein. KwaZulu-Natal, partly cloudy skies for most of the day, highs of 29 in Durban, while in Bombela, it's a cool day today with a high of 24 degrees. Further north, we do see that places like Botswana and Zimbabwe are expecting to see just partly cloudy skies, especially going towards the eastern part. And in the extreme northern parts of Zimbabwe, we're seeing Harare peaking at 24 with isolated showers. We do see that Windhoek is also warm today with a high of 24, but the southern parts of Madagascar only expecting cool conditions with partly cloudy skies. We're seeing Fianarantsoa with only 19 as a maximum, while the northern parts, Mahajanga at 33. Further north, we do see the coastal areas in Kenya may receive some rain. In fact, lots of rain expected with a high of 29 there, while over the interior, we're seeing Nairobi at 26, while over the western parts, we see that highs of 28 there in Libreville, while scattered showers expected for Brazzaville and Kinshasa for today and tomorrow, seeing highs of 25 there in Kinshasa. That's all I have from the weather desk. Remember, wherever you go, take your weather with you.
SABCnews.com is your one-stop digital portal to all the news you need. With a website that is easy to use on mobile, SABC News prides itself in being the primary source of public service content across multiple platforms. Watch live streams of all the big news events on the SABC News YouTube channel, which is one of the most viewed South African YouTube channels globally. And catch up on the best of SABC television and radio news. Follow breaking news on all of the SABC News social media platforms, interact with SABC News on Facebook, and stay connected on Twitter for the latest headlines and real-time updates by our reporters. SABC News, everywhere.
Well, the Free State ANC hosts a memorial service for struggle icon Winnie Madikizela Mandela in Brantford, where she was banished by the apartheid government. The Democratic Alliance defends its newly elected leadership amid critique that it lacks diversity. Well, 3 former SARS executives are also expected to appear at the Pretoria Regional Court today on charges related to the controversial so-called rogue unit. And coming up in your sports, Team South Africa has bagged its 10th medal at this year's Commonwealth Games in the Gold Coast, Australia. Very good morning to you and welcome to Newsroom. It's just gone 10 a.m. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Just ahead, we check in with all our reporters on the ground in the latest of a series of events to celebrate the late struggle Soweto Madikizela that includes the Eastern Cape as well as the home of Winnie Madikizela in Soweto, as well as the event that will be hosted at Constitutional Hill. First things first, let's have a look at your top story. Well, late activist Stompie Seipei's mother is expected to attend Winnie Madikizela Mandela's funeral at the Orlando Stadium in Soweto on Saturday. Joyce Seipei told the media yesterday that she has forgiven all those who were involved in her son's murder in 1989.
I went to the toilet and said, God, I ask that you help me to forgive because this thing is going to consume me. Then I came across Mama Winnie in the toilet and no one knew about that. The first thing she said to me was, this child looks exactly like Stompie. May God forgive me. And I have since forgiven Mama Winnie because only God knows who did it. But I have forgiven all those whose names were mentioned in Stompie's murder.
Well, in marking the countdown, what would have been Nelson Mandela's 100th birthday, the Nelson Mandela Foundation is holding a tribute event to honor the late Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Let's go to our reporter on the ground, Dakwana Ngatane, who has been giving us the latest from Constitutional Hill. Very good morning to Dakwana. What's happening that side this morning, this hour? And of course, Dakwana, if
the event is
there we go.
Begin any minute now. I beg your pardon, Shante? Can you hear us, Shante?
Yes, we can hear you, Dakwana. Just give us the latest that side.
Right, as I say, guests have started arriving here at Constitution Hill and the event is expected to begin any moment now. And earlier on, we heard some sound tests from people like Yvonne Chaka Chaka and the Soweto Gospel Choir. But we also have here, as I said, Anand Singh, who will present a short video that he's done about Mama. You know that he has produced films like Long Walk to Freedom, and some of the films that he's done were Emmy-nominated films all over the world. But let me talk to some of the guests who've arrived here and get a sense of why they felt they had to be here. Mel, why did you feel you had to be here today?
It was very important for us to honor Winnie Mandela as she's one of our heroes and somebody that we look up to as young feminists.
What are you hoping to get out of this day today?
Very moving tributes, some warm remembrances, and to ensure that her legacy actually lives on through some of us.
Now, I see that you are already heeding that call for people to wear dukes to honor Mama, but maybe you can tell us what you would like to get out of today.
I think my friend here has covered pretty much what I'm here for as well. In fact, we're pretty much here to honor her very courageous life. As young women, we all look up to people like her, like Mama Winnie. So the Duke also symbolizes that woman power, that strength that resided within her. So, yeah.
Well, let me get the last one, Shante. And this is another lady, I think, who's wearing that Duke also. I can see that for you, perhaps, it's about your religion, but tell us what Mama meant for you.
She was definitely a legendary icon, someone we grew up listening about. We might not have seen her fight in person, but we definitely felt her strength around us all the time. I chose to wear a red duke today to symbolize strength and power and to show that women are the next generation.
Well, there you have it, Shante. Women are the next generation. We heard earlier from the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and that is Silo Hatang, saying that we shouldn't just remember her, but we should emulate what she represented. There's a lady here who wants to also talk to me.
No, let me first tell you.
Yes. And, well, Shante, we will have to leave it at that for now. But the event begins around 10 a.m. And as I said, the stage is already set. We have a backdrop that says Hamba Gahle Mama, but we have a lot of activities that will grace the stage that we are at now. Shante?
Thank you very much, Ntakwana Ngatale. Coming to us from a very gloomy Monday morning at Constitutional Hill. Just hearing some of the sentiments there of some of the women in attendance this morning, hearing why they are there, and a very interesting statement that was actually being read out by that one young woman, saying that we might not have always seen her, but we've definitely felt her strength. Continuing with all our live coverage all over South Africa this morning, we'll also be crossing to Mbizana as the local municipality there in the Eastern Cape is also going to be celebrating the life and time of Mama Nomzamo Winnie Madikizela Mandela at a memorial service. That's tomorrow. Of course, so she was born in the Mongweni village in the area. President Cyril Ramaphosa is also expected to deliver a keynote address at the event. Let's go back to SABC report on the ground, Simkita Mangnana, who is in Bizana, giving us the latest there this morning. She is with another guest. We cross over to you now, Simkita.
Welcome back, Shante, to Mputumi Mafumbata Stadium here in Bizana local municipality, where the official provincial memorial service of the late stalwart Mama Madikizela Mandela will be held tomorrow. And the keynote speaker in this memorial service is expected to be the president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa. A lot of activities are taking place throughout Bizana. There's also going to be a night vigil at Mbongweni village where she was born, and there's also a lot of activities taking place where she got married at Ludeke village. But now to unpack the program of tomorrow, we have the MEC of Sports and Arts and Recreation in the province, Umamupemi Majodina. A very good morning and a warm welcome to this broadcast this morning. Who are the other dignitaries that are expected here besides the president of the country?
We're expecting all ministers, the national leadership of the Tripartite Alliance, but tonight the family wishes to close the chapter. That is why you are going to support them on their night vigil, because they want to prepare themselves to be lighter in terms of emotions by tomorrow. Hence, the president will touch base in the morning at the family at Mbongweni before coming to address the provincial official memorial service.
Thousands of people are expected to attend this memorial service. In terms of security, how are the preparations?
We are 99% ready for all people that are coming here. In terms of transport, we are ready, and we want to give Umama a well-deserving and befitting memorial service, because she comes from this area. She managed to go out there and represent this area that was not known anywhere, but she has been there, and she has been very bold to represent the poorest of the poor.
What is the message? Because we are going to attend the memorial service and the funeral, and she will be put in a place of resting in peace. However, there must be a message that you want to send as government to South Africans. What is that particular message that you want people to take forward?
Want to request all our people to take the values that Mama stood for, the values of Ubuntu, of being a caregiver, of going out and assist the needy, but also of uniting all South Africans under one banner where we want to transform South Africa, because those are the things that Umama stood for, though to care for the homelessness, and also to ensure that in terms of education we improve and recommit ourselves in this renewal program where each and every public rep must be prepared to serve and go beyond call of duty to serve our people.
Thank you very much for your time. Well, that was the MEC of Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture, culture here in the province of the Eastern Cape. Activities are also taking place at the place where she got married to Tata Nelson Mandela at Qunu. There's a lot of activities taking place there. Everyone saying that they want to celebrate her because of her role that she played in the struggle to free South Africans. It's back to you in Johannesburg.
Thank you very much for that. SABC's Simkita Mangana in Bizana giving us the latest down there from the Eastern Cape. Well, continuing and marking the countdown in what would have been Nelson Mandela's 100th birthday this year, we're continuing to give you the holding of a tribute event to honor the late Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. It is going to be hosted at Constitutional Hill this morning. Our reporter on the ground, Ndakwana Ngatane, is giving us all the latest. We've been crossing to and fro this morning. A very good morning to Ndakwana. What's happening that side? Ndakwana, can you hear me? All right, still struggling with the sound there this gloomy Monday morning, waiting for technology to catch up with us. As soon as we get Ntakwana online, then we'll cross to her. Well, the ANC is also going to be unveiling a wall of remembrance for the anti-apartheid struggle icon Winnie Madikizela Mandela. It is outside the headquarters in Johannesburg this morning. The wall will also allow for members of the public to sign their own messages of condolences and support to Mam Winnie. Meanwhile, many people have commemorated the life of Madikizela Mandela at an all-night prayer vigil in Ngangilizwe in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape. Atule Joke filed the report for SABC.
A moving night vigil in honor of the late struggle icon. People from different backgrounds descended here to bid the late veteran farewell. She was described as a fearless woman.
We are here to say thank you, Mama. You've done so much for the people of South Africa, in particular the women. So you've shown us how to be a strong woman.
Some say the sacrifice cannot be forgotten by generations to come.
As a national radio station, we saw it befitting that we come to this municipality, form this partnership to mourn the passing of Umama. We know that she dedicated her life to fighting for our freedom.
A number of commemorations have been planned across the country, including a memorial service in Bizana. She will be laid to rest in an official state funeral on the 14th of April in Gauteng. I am Atula Joka, SABC News, Mthatha.
Well, in marking down the countdown, what would have been Nelson Mandela's 100th birthday, the foundation is holding a tribute to honor the late Mama Winnie Madikizela. Let's go back to our reporter on the ground, Gwana Ngatana, giving us the latest from Constitutional Hill. Over to you.
Well, good morning again, Shante. I'm finding some very, very special people. Some of them have come as far away as London, and one of them is Mama Adelaide Joseph, who was a very close friend of Mama Winnie. You last saw her in November when you were here, but tell us about your journey with her.
Well, as I said, I met Winnie before she married Nelson. We got married in the same year. Our children were born at the same time. Zeni is a day older than my daughter Zoya. We've been in constant contact even after we went into exile. Nelson even remembered my birthdays. He sent me birthday greetings from the island. That's how close we were. A lot of people professed that they knew Mama and Winnie in this way and in that way. I don't want to push myself forward, but we've been comrades, friends, and the last time I saw her in November, she called the entire staff at her house and she said, I want you to meet my soul sister. She is my soul sister. She stood behind me to thick and to thin. When everybody else turned against Winnie, because she did one or two mistakes like everybody else does, but because she's a woman, everybody just remember the little silly things that happened. But if it was a man, they would have forgotten it. But Winnie is the icon of this, the best leader that we had in this country is Winnie Mandela. No one can stand up to Winnie. Winnie is known throughout the world. The whole world is mourning for Winnie. She's the feminist that she was. She stood for what she believed, and all the difficulties that she had made her a stronger person. And I admire her, I support her, I love her, and I will continue to remember Winnie the way she was. We have been close in spite of the fact that we were far away. We kept in contact. Whenever Zenny came to London, she only stayed with us. She phoned me immediately. Her mother died. She called me. She said, Auntie Adelaide, I've got to tell you that Mummy has just passed. Winnie has meant so much to the entire Joseph family. My husband was in jail with Mandela for a short time during the treason trial. We've been constant in touch, and we have a very, very high regard for Winnie. I'm so pleased that I can be here today I'm going to the funeral. I saw Zenny yesterday. I'm getting a ticket to go to the funeral. I'm going to all the other functions because those kids are like my own children. Zenny and Zinzi are like my own kids, and my children were like Mama Winnie was the mother to them. Winnie is a person that the whole world is mourning for today because she is the person that showed women we can stand up and fight for ourselves in spite of all the difficulties we have, stand up and be counted, and that is Winnie Mandela.
Thank you so much. That is Mama Adelaide Joseph. She's come all the way from London, and she says she last saw Mama Winnie in November when she came to visit, but they have traveled this journey and she only has good things to say about her. So back to you for now, Shante.
Thank you very much. We'll continue to cross over to Ntakowana Gatane as she gives us the live proceedings of that honorary tribute at Constitutional Hill this morning. Moving on to some other news. Well, one of the 22 ANC political trialists of the 1969 charged with high treason alongside Winnie Madikizela Mandela has remembered their tough days in detention together. 85-year-old Rita Nzanga, then secretary of the Railway Workers Union, was among those detained for 6 months without a single change of clothes. SABC's Griselda Lewis reports.
One of the unsung heroes of the struggle, honored with the Order of Luthuli by 2 presidents.
Ms. Rita Nzanga.
In 2004 and last year as part of the 22 ANC political trialists of 1969 charged with terrorism. Detained alongside Madikizela Mandela.
When we were charged, then
Rita Nzanga recalls the often brutal treatment when she, Ma Winnie and others were transported from the cells to court.
I was surprised because in the car I saw Winnie Mandela, and then while they had Winnie Mandela, they went to fetch me. Oh, something is wrong now here. Me and Winnie together. What is going on? Then, all right, we couldn't speak because those people knew our language as well as we know them. We were taken by cars every morning to court and brought back to the cells. But the life we had there in the cells, it was a terrible life. There was no bathroom. We did not have a bathroom or anything, but we had to protest until we could get that.
Even after they were released, Marita remembers a comrade and caring friend.
Wherever she is, she must rest peacefully because umsebenzi uwenzile. Umsebenzi uwenzile. Namhlanje we are free.
She too feels the loss of Mum Winnie deeply. Griselda Lewis, SABC News in Soweto.
Further news now. The Democratic Alliance has defended its newly elected leadership following critique that it does not reflect South Africa's demographics and that it is male-dominated. Well, re-elected DA leader Musimamane says there are a number of women elected into leadership positions in the province. Meanwhile, the party has rallied behind Nelson Mandela Bay Mayor Athol Trollip, who faces a vote of no confidence in the council this week. The party approved a recall clause during its elective congress over the weekend, paving the way to recall Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille. The amendment does allow for those accused of improper conduct to make representations and go through a disciplinary process. Maimane also called on all members of the party to hold their new leadership to account. Well, Democratic Alliance leader Musa Maimane has urged party members to continue being activists in their respective constituencies. He was addressing the party's two-day elective congress in Pretoria. Maimane also reiterated that the party belongs to all South Africans as it embraces diversity.
I have a genuine interest of making sure there are women in all our structures, in all our leadership places. And I actually think we can't be quickly dismissive of the fact that in provinces, we've also seen the election of great female leaders. I think we mustn't be quick to just simply say, no, that doesn't matter. We also mustn't be quick to say that in executive office, we have a lot of female mayors. So, yes, do I want to set a threshold here and say, well, we'll have so many women, 50% must be women, 50% must be that? I can't. I don't subscribe to quotas. Do I want more female leaders? Of course I do.
Well, the ANC in KZN has dismissed reports suggesting secret talks are taking place to split the party vote in next year's general elections in order to get rid of President Cyril Ramaphosa. It's alleged the plot is being hatched by provincial supporters of former President Jacob Zuma.
They came out in their numbers in support of former President Zuma, some even chanting anti-President Cyril Ramaphosa songs. It has now emerged those behind the mobilization may have had a hidden agenda. An alleged plot against President Ramaphosa by Zuma loyalists in KwaZulu-Natal revealed.
We are sick and tired.
Reports suggest that Zuma supporters are unhappy with the current ANC leadership.
So then they are of the view that he's basically being victimized. So then they are saying that they are going to give him all the support he needs in order to prove to the ANC that in fact they are not happy about the current status quo.
However, KZN's interim coordinator has refuted these claims, saying they have full confidence in President Ramaphosa.
In KwaZulu-Natal, I haven't heard of anyone proposing or even echoing a view of voting for anyone except consolidating unity and ensure that there is support for the ANC comes general elections.
Vusi Khumalo, SABC News, Durban.
Well, 3 former SARS executives are expected to appear in the Pretoria Regional Court today. They're facing charges related to the so-called rogue unit in the revenue services that was allegedly set up to spy on the National Prosecuting Authority. Ivan Pillay, Johan van Lochenberg, as well as Andries Janse van Rensburg face charges of corruption and contravention of the RICA Act. The charges are linked to the alleged bugging of the NPA offices back in 2007. The charges against Pillay, van Lochenberg and Janse van Rensburg flow from the now discredited KPMG report into the alleged rogue unit at SARS. The KPMG report addressed the alleged bugging of the NPA offices in a project called Sunday Evenings. But KPMG has since retracted parts of the report and refunded SARS the 23 million rand it paid. The police and the officials from the Correctional Services Department are on the hunt for 16 detainees who escaped from the Johannesburg Correctional Centre early this morning. Correctional Services spokesperson Singabakon Khumalo says according to preliminary investigations, the detainees escaped through a pipe shaft. Khumalo.
Meet Omakoya Bama jokes. Some people have a way with their faces to crack you up, leave you on the floor in stitches, and motivate you to come out of the closet.
So in life, you need to be more assertive.
Having confidence in yourself is what I'm going to teach you.
So shy, you know what? I can't meet men. It's difficult for me to meet men.
Because you're in denial. What? How about your problem?
Men are not here just to be used.
Ah, well, it's been a pleasure to meet you.
If you were gay, would you tell us?
No. Yes. I mean, well, there's nothing wrong with being gay.
Okay.
If you were normal, you'd know that you are not normal.
Point, okay, is that it's boring. All right?
It's like Jacob Zuma saying he doesn't need a lawyer.
Silly misunderstanding. I mean, I, for one, would never say anything against Mr. Nelson Madiba.
Wasasihleke sonke ku-Fonts and Sons and Fishy Fashions on SABC Encore, DSTV channel 156.
Hi, I'm Dr. Malinga wa Gauteng Maboning. Catch me live from Gauteng Maboning, but for now, o ka lebelela tsela tsa bo Lesilo Rulo mo maswing mutle kwano ko channel 156 ke di encore ke di repeat o di jaja
Lesilo Rulo mo maswing mutle le loto la Dr. Malinga.
Get ready to be amused by hostile vibes and interesting hiccups in translation.
What is he saying?
Him say, them know about the bug. The bug eats land.
What has all this got to do with the millennium bug?
Ii-computers ziyakuba nako ukulahlekelwa ingqondo ngomnyaka 2000.
Hayi, uzahlanya uyedwa wena.
Mama siqala ndawo yokujayiva so.
Hapuni into yokujayiva kipi?
As dancing keeps us entertained, we witness an unusual consultation. Emzini wezinsizwa
Ungakwateki man, sizokubhadala futhi man.
Mani sayele yaman.
Yaman.
SABC Encore, DSTV channel 156.
So says, I expected that from that white party. Well, we've also been asking you, do you think the DA's new leadership is reflective of the diversity it claims? That's, of course, upon the outcome of the two-day Congress that concluded yesterday there at the Federal Congress, that is. 78% of you are saying no, 22% of you are saying yes, it is reflective of the diversity it claims. Let's have a look at some of the forwards and the comments coming behind those numbers there. Well, 90% of DA delegates, according to Lechasa, were female. DA doesn't elect ones who are legitimate. Delegates that spoke more like what they've done, like Rafilwe, and she's representing the females of South Africa. Soweto says yes, well, he agrees. So Soweto definitely being there, one of those 22% figures there, agreeing that there is diversity upon the results and the outcome there of the DA's Federal Congress, which concluded yesterday. Thank you very much for sending us your tweets on both our poll as well as our question. Well, continuing in marking the countdown of what would have been Tata Madiba's 100th birthday, Nelson Mandela Foundation is in fact holding a tribute event to honor the late Mama Winnie. We have been crossing throughout the course of the morning in the live proceedings. Let's cross live.
She was a hard-working child, working the fields, cultivating the crops, herding cattle, milking cows, and becoming adept at stick fighting and defending herself. Her family tells of how she would beat up the boys that sought to bully her at Mfundisweni Secondary School. Born into a large family of a school principal, Ukalimbizeni, who taught more than what colonial education intended, and who crowded their home with many kids who came to attend their school. Winnie was socialized for a gregarious life of nationalistic consciousness. This must be what attracted her to the DEPA activist Rolihlahla Mandela. This was to mark her way of life in Soweto to her last day. As we celebrate Mangwijana here today, we do well to acknowledge that rural heritage, which she continued to cherish and from which she was to draw her strength and strategy. This heritage inspired her adaptive capacity, which was to come through in how she responded to the life imprisonment of her husband. As she said, "My people shall never lose hope. In fact, we expect that the work will go on." Not a hint of self-pity at the prospect of the life ahead of her. This emerging adaptive leader was to become the magnet for those who were prepared to give of themselves for the struggle for justice and for the preservation of the dignity of the people against apartheid and its degrading humiliation. Her father's political education and her mother's accommodation and nurturing of children from all over who came to their school prepared her. No, it conditioned her to be the pioneer social worker who would draw many to her orbit of influence for a better South Africa. Secondly, the political and organizational culture of a Pondoland home community was to become the guiding light of her organizational strategy. She would be incisively analytical of her situation, act courageously and decisively to defend and expand her base, turning adversity into her strategic thrust. Straitjacketed as she was for decades by banning orders, prison, solitary confinement, torture, round-the-clock surveillance, and put through the meal of insults and abuse, and yes, with her dignity and good name being undermined by a complex diversity from without and from within her immediate environs. The foundation of her roots in Pondoland prevailed, and she remained focused on mobilizing for active citizenship for public good, for the public good of the least, leaving nothing to chance. If we're to remember her this week, we have to each commit to take up our citizenship responsibility without reservation. The unprotected of our society need it of us all. The accountability of government in the constitutional state requires it. For an accountable government is the product of an active citizenry. In Winnie Madikizela-Mandela, we had a mother of active citizenship. In her regrettable death, we have gained an ancestor of active citizenship. And with her spirit of courage and fortitude, we shall remain the defenders of the socially and economically deprived for a future she would have lived for.
Indeed, that's the memorial service held in tribute and honor of the late Mama Winnie Madikizela. Also seeing the likes there of Ivan Chaka as well as Trevor Manuel. We will be crossing back to that. For now, though, let's take a short break here on SABC's Newsroom.
Shervin Bryceby's SABC News, New York.
Paul Barber, SABC News, London.
Tebu Mokobo, SABC Ufa go tswa mono Russia.
Neha Punia, SABC News, Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh in India.
Other than that, I've enjoyed every single moment of it.
Takwana Ngatani, SABC News, Soweto, Johannesburg.
Dozens have been wounded in clashes between the UN peacekeeping mission in the Central African Republic and armed militia calling themselves the Self-Defense Forces. France has called for an urgent UN Security Council meeting today following an alleged chemical attack that left dozens dead in Syria's rebel-held town of Douma. The Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg is expected to appear before US lawmakers tomorrow as pressure mounts for the adoption of new regulations for social media platforms. Well, leading at the half hour with the news abroad, dozens have been wounded in clashes between the UN peacekeeping mission in Central African Republic and armed militia calling themselves the Defense Forces. Well, those forces control a Muslim district of the capital Bangui known as the PK5.
A UN spokesperson said 11 soldiers from the United Nations multi-dimensional integrated stabilization mission in the Central African Republic and around 20 more civilians and militia were wounded during an operation in which the UN tried to dismantle roadblocks set up by the armed groups who controlled the PK5. Shops were burned and looted, and the UN multi-dimensional integrated stabilization mission had to drive out of the area amid gunfire. Eight people were arrested and weapons were recovered by the UN Integrated Stabilization Mission during the operation.
We were sleeping, and at around 2:15 in the morning, we heard shots from heavy and light artillery. This morning we saw MINUSCA and FACA in our streets, and a lot of people came out onto the streets to leave. We don't know exactly what is happening.
Peacekeepers were also fired on in the PK5 last Sunday, the first direct attack on UN forces in the PK5 since the violence resumed in 2017. The UN Multi-Dimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission spokesperson Hav Verhoesel said earlier this week, the UN has called on the armed groups in the PK5, which it described as operating like the mafia in the economic heart of the city, to lay down their weapons, warning that action would be taken if they did not.
Well, the governing party candidate who lost in the presidential election in Sierra Leone, Samura Kamara, has dropped his challenge to the results and congratulated his successor. Kamara says he and All People's Congress will support the efforts of Julius Maada Bio to form a new government. Reports say Bio will need the support of the APC, which controls more than half of the seats in parliament. Well, several people have died after a Syrian military airport was hit by missiles amid international alarm over a suspected chemical attack in the rebel-held town. A number of missiles struck the Tias airbase known as T4 near the city of Homs this morning.
Syrian air defences reportedly shot down 8 missiles after a major airbase was struck early on Monday morning. That's according to Syrian state TV. They say the strikes near Homs were suspected to have been launched by the United States. However, a senior US official told Reuters there's no truth to reports of any American strikes against bases controlled by Syria's Bashar al-Assad. Syrian state TV said that a series of loud explosions were heard at the airfield as several suspected US missiles struck the installation in the country's west in the early hours of Monday morning local time. Monday's missile strike report follows an alleged chemical attack on the rebel-held region of eastern Ghouta by the Syrian military late Saturday. On Sunday, US President Donald Trump said on Twitter there would be a big price to pay for the alleged chemical attack in Ghouta, placing blame squarely at the feet of the Syrian and Russian governments. Early Monday morning, US government sources told Reuters an assessment of what happened in Ghouta showed that chemical weapons had been used. Medical aid groups said dozens were killed by poison gas in the attack. The source said the US was still assessing further details of the attack, but that their determination of the use of chemical weapons had been made with some degree of confidence. The European Union also said earlier that evidence pointed to Syrian state forces being responsible for the attack. The Syrian government has denied involvement.
Well, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says that globalization is irreversible amid escalating tensions between the United States and China over trade tariffs. The world's two largest economies have roiled global markets in the past week by threatening each other with tens of billions of US dollars worth of tariffs in the recent days.
Acknowledging the possible drawbacks of globalization, such as inequalities, during a meeting with China's premier, Guterres said that with positive attitudes of openness and reform and international cooperation, they can overcome those difficulties.
That it is possible to overcome the imbalances in globalization, the fact that globalization also brought inequalities and also brought some problems, but that globalization is irreversible. And it is with this positive attitude, openness and reform and international cooperation that we can overcome those difficulties. And we count on China. We believe China is today a central pillar of the international multilateral system, and we want to fully cooperate with China.
The United States charging China with unfair trade practices and theft of intellectual property proposed some $50 billion in tariffs on Tuesday, April the 3rd. 25% tariffs on more than 1,300 Chinese industrial and other products, from flat panel televisions to electronic components. China shot back within hours with its own list of proposed duties on $50 billion of American imports, including soybeans, aircrafts, cars, beef, and chemicals.
Well, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg is expected to appear before US lawmakers tomorrow as pressure mounts for the adoption of new regulations for social media platforms. Well, the 33-year-old is expected to face a grilling from a Senate panel, after which he will appear in the House of Representatives on Wednesday. It comes amid a raft of inquiries on both sides of the Atlantic following disclosures that data on 87 million users was hijacked and improperly shared with the Cambridge Analytica, which is a British political consultancy working for Donald Trump's presidential campaign. Lawmakers have signaled that they intend to get tough on Facebook and other online services over privacy.
Shervin Bricebys, SABC News, New York.
Paul Barber, SABC News, London.
Ntebo Mokobo, SABC Ufa go tswa mo Russia.
Neha Punia, SABC News, Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh in India.
Other than that, I've enjoyed every single moment of it.
SABC News, Soweto, Johannesburg.
When life takes a different turn.
If I didn't eat the speak, he was going to evict me.
Your will to persevere is ignited.
I'm not a professional speaker, but I'll try my best to give you a word of inspiration.
He was just trying to provide for his family.
If you can't accept it, change it. If you cannot change it, accept it.
And a new story begins.
Made a resolve to myself. I'm learning something new.
Upilong, every Friday at 5:30. Be part of the life-changing journey.
Well, in marking the countdown what would have been Nelson Mandela's 100th birthday, the Nelson Mandela Foundation is holding a tribute event to honor the late Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Let's cross live to the proceedings.
Quickly bundled me into her home and proceeded to fuss over me, plying me with cookies, cool drink, and umbon. We sat in her garden that afternoon, basking in the early autumn sun, as we spoke frankly and openly about life, love, politics. The warmth and generosity she showed me that day, a stranger, remains forever etched in my mind. We will all miss her. Sithi ke ngalo akuhlanga lingahlanga. Lala ngoxolo mangutyana. Hamba kakuhle Mama Nomzamo. I thank you.
Uthethile Nikiwe, siyabulela kakhulu. Njengoba sitsho namhlanje, we're here to mourn the death of Mama, but more importantly, to celebrate her legacy, to celebrate her life, to celebrate her energy, to celebrate her soul, ultimately, the sacrificial soul. As South Africans, we are great storytellers, and we travel the world telling these magnificent stories. One of our greatest exports is about to come onto stage to allow us to continue the legacy of Mama. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Anant Singh.
Thank you. Esteemed guests, Ndleka Mandela and the Mandela family members, Margrasa, and especially George Bezos, because he was the one that in 1958, shortly after Winnie was married, defended her for an assaulting a policeman. And that journey began with Winnie and Madiba all that time ago. She was only 25 years old. Thank you. She was a giant amongst women and men. And I think that when you read and watch the news and everybody, you know, they talk about her journey. And she was such a formidable character, and I'm so proud that she was a friend. My journey with her began almost 35 years ago when I met her through our mutual friend Fatima Mir. And that whole time of a generation of amazing South African women who were holding the torch and also being single parents, bringing up their children, was difficult enough, not that they had, and thereafter they had to endure the enormous hardships of the apartheid regime. Fatima was doing a book on Mama Winnie and asked me to help with some of the design and the publishing. And the more I read and the more I learned, the more inspired I was to use that medium of film that I know to speak out against apartheid. I was in awe of her enormous courage and the injustices that she had to endure. Over the years, several meetings ensued where I got to meet her, and as I was beginning my journey with making a film of Long Walk to Freedom, I started talking to her, and the ability to tell that story and what it became was largely as a function of the love story between Madiba and Winnie. She was always available and met with the actors, met with the director, the writers, And she had this remarkable memory of detail. And that I was very fortunate about, because I could call her and say, you know, you were in solitary. We talk about Tina Swallenpool, who was this mean security police official who did the worst to her, trying to break her down. And as we see, we go ahead 100 days today to Madiba's birthday. Imagine spending 5 times that in solitary. Most of us would break down quite easily, but she didn't. She said to me that it was that the more they threw at her, the more she had to try and succeed and be coming out of there and being the fighter that she was. So I got to making the film. When we started production, I think she was slightly apprehensive about how I was going to tell the story. I gave her the assurance that I'm going to be factually accurate. And we went through production, and then came the time to actually show her the film. It was probably the most terrifying time for me in my life, because I'm taking someone who's alive, whose life I'm putting into film, and having her watch it, and what if she hated it, and it's a psychological minefield. Anyway, it was just the two of us. We sat in a private movie theater and next to each other, and we watched the movie. And I'm nervous. She floated into it, and it was such a remarkable and one of the most memorable moments, experiences of my life, because I could see, her fidgeting and, turning, and watching those images, holding my hand at times. And at the end of the movie, she turned to me and gave me a kiss and said, "I love it, don't change anything." And we talked about the actress, because Naomi Harris was playing her, and she said no one could do that as well as she did. She has to be African. She was actually born in England. And when they met, they became immediate friends, because they did a photo shoot together, which was quite amazing. And going on from there, I did the song for the film is called Ordinary Love. And Bono and U2 did the song. So Bono records 2 songs, he sends them to me. I love them, and he calls me back 2 weeks later and says, "No, I don't think this is fitting. This love story has to come out more." So we talked for a while, and then it came upon me, why don't I send him the letters between Madiba and Winnie, both their letters, during their prison time. That was the catalyst for Ordinary Love that became the award-winning song that in the film. About a few months ago, I got to visit with her, and I took her an iPad with about 20 hours of material. So it was interviews, it was photographs going back, from the Kunu days, and I showed it to her, I put it on, I was with my son, and she started watching, and, and she says, she remembered details in those in the images going back, and it was such a wonderful experience for me and my son that we were reliving through her in that immediate time. So I think I was very happy that that happened. I want to send our love, our prayers, and our support to Zenani and Zinzi, my sisters, who have been close friends for years. This is a very difficult time for them. I want to salute the strength of their mother in bringing them up, and in such difficult circumstances. That guy Swanepoel would make it his duty to take her away late at night when they were sleeping. He'd wake them up, and it was so devastating for the children. So this tribute that I've put together, Cello called me last week, I think on Thursday, and said, why don't we do a video? And fortunately, it was that material that I presented to her that I had as a resource. And this is my tribute to her, and I hope you feel that it does justice to her amazing legacy. We salute her, we love her, and always will, and I hope she inspires the young people of today and tomorrow to learn and experience from her journey. Thank you. Play the video, please.
I was at work at Baragwanath Hospital, and I got a call from a man who introduced himself over the phone as Nelson Mandela. He said he wanted to see me and discuss certain issues with me. I was petrified. I was so shocked at receiving that call. I wondered what I had done. Then on the appointed day we met, and it transpired he wanted me to help raise funds for the then treason trial. That is how I met my husband.
Winnie came to visit us before she was married to Nelson. So she came as a very young woman, very much in love with Nelson, carrying photographs of him as a boxer in the ring, actually boxing.
Although herself under banning orders, Winnie did not hesitate to fight for her right to attend the trial. The children were refused permission to enter the courtroom. They would not see their father again for over 10 years.
I shall never lose hope, and my people shall never lose hope. In fact, we expect that the work will go on.
So there was demonstrations, and people were arrested and filled the jail. And Winnie was one of those people that were arrested. She was expectant with her first child at that time, and even in that state, she went to jail.
Alone in prison, it's very difficult to keep sane. Especially as political prisoners, we're always confined in their own cells and not mixed with other prisoners. I think the worst punishment for a human being is to isolate a person.
Winnie is really very amazing. There she is, banished to Brantford, God-forsaken place, a place where the Afrikaner think very little of an African. To them, an African is someone that is there, that has been put in this world to serve them and work for them. So she gets there, and she revolutionizes the whole place.
Hey, don't drag me! I'm coming! Don't drag me! Don't drag me! You may accompany me. I know what I was doing. Don't drag me!
I am as certain as the sun rises from the east and sets in the west that that man is going to lead this country to its liberation. Apartheid gave birth to me. I didn't plan to do the things I did. I reacted to the situation of the time. I was just part and parcel of this huge machinery that was fighting for the total liberation of my people, and I'm a product of that. I'm a product of apartheid.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. And we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun. We know there's days to sing God's praise, and when we first begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see.
Tina Sizwe.
Lest we forget that with this freedom comes great responsibility. Lest we forget that with this freedom, there is so much to be done in Mama's name. As many of us have said, she is resting in power, Nabapant. She is multiplied. Can we take what she has done by example and allow that to be our future narrative? We're blessed to be gathered here in Namhlanje, as we've mentioned, 100 days before Dada's centenary, but also to celebrate the life of Umama Wetu, who became this global phenomenon feared by many just because she was reacting to her reality. Con Hill has been an important part of our narrative as Abantu baseMzantsi Afrika, and we are grateful for this partnership. Speaking on behalf of Con N, we'd like to welcome on stage Mr. Ruben Pasha.
To the family of Winnie, the Deputy Chief Justice Zondo, the Minister, Jeff Khadebe, who's here with us, Mama Gracia Machel, the CEO of Nelson Mandela Foundation, colleagues from Nelson Mandela Foundation in Constitution Hill, esteemed guests, welcome officially to Constitution Hill. It's very funny, actually, that you are all gathered here in an old prison. Most of you wouldn't have willingly come here under those apartheid years, even before apartheid years, because this was a very feared prison. When you mention number 4, people would tremble. But today, this place has transformed itself into a monument of our Constitution, and it is because of people like Winnie Mandela that we have this place today. You are now sitting under the remnants of the awaiting trial block stairs behind you. This was the biggest part of the prison that incarcerated the 156 treason trialists that were arrested in 1956. And then 2 years later, Winnie Mandela was arrested in the same prison here. This place has a long history. It was opened and built by Paul Kruger in 1897 as an all-fort prison to keep law and order in Johannesburg. But later, in 1902, they built number 4, which is behind me, that incarcerated a lot of men. And then this was people like your Robert Sobukwe's, Mahatma Gandhi's. There's a lot of them. The list is endless. And then the women were also incarcerated in the women's jail, which was built in 1909 to 1910. And it kept people like Winnie Mandela, Albertina Sisulu, Fatima Meya. The list is also endless. So this is a very, very important place. And I would like to acknowledge and thank Nelson Mandela Foundation for bringing this event here in this place, because the significance is it was a place where Mam Winnie was arrested. She was brought here in 1958 for the first time when she was pregnant. And she was held in solitary confinement. And it was around the same period when she was still married to Nelson Mandela, who was also in prison. So you can imagine a family without parents who are both in prison. Her second stay, it was in 1976, where she was brought here with a link with Soweto uprising, and she was kept in one of the isolation cells in the women's jail. We would like to, as we celebrate or commemorate the Freedom Month this year, and honor Winnie Mandela as one of those liberation heroines of the liberation struggle by giving her a monumental exhibition, a photographic exhibition that will stay here in her memory. So that our children, those who come after me, can come here and remember her and remember what she fought for. We honored her before in 2004 when the court was built and opened and the museums were built in the women's jail by naming one of the courtyards Winnie Mandela courtyards. So she was honored. And we are fortunate that she kept on working with Constitution Hill even after when the prison no longer functioned as a prison, but it was a museum and a home of the Constitutional Court. I remember she launched a book here. I remember she had a lot of events that she was doing here. And I can imagine how difficult it must have been to come back to a place that used to humiliate and torture you. But I know she was doing it for us, and then we'd like to continue on that by honoring her with an exhibition. I would like to also invite you after this event to go to the women's jail, see where she was incarcerated. We have put a book there where people can write messages for her, which we will hope to include in our upcoming exhibition. And do come back again to see this photographic exhibition of Mam Winnie. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker was a prisoner here. 3 generations of Palmer women were imprisoned on the same day in this very prison. Mama Cecily Palmer was here with her mother, not knowing that at the time she was pregnant with her own daughter. Having conversations with women like this, we are reminded that today cannot be a talk shop, and today has to be exemplary of us making sure that we live the legacy. Please put your hands together for Mama Cecily Palmer.
Good morning, everybody. All protocol observed. I'm sorry I'm not ever, I can't be. I've never managed to be politically correct. So please excuse me if I haven't greeted you properly. Just to say, I was in this trail together with Nomzamo in 1976. There was a group of us that were picked up from July 1976. I'll name those women, and then I want you to think about how many of them are still alive. Nomzamo, Winnie Mandela, Fatima Mir, Deborah Machoba, Jeannie Noel, Joyce Siroke, Sally Motlana, Lolo Tabani, Sibongile Kubeka, Oshari Mangena, Vesta Smith, who was my mother and me. All these women were locked up under the Internal Security Act because people like Jimmy Kruger were too afraid. They locked us up because they thought we were a danger to the state. I'd like to speak about my last meeting with Nomzamo. We met quite by accident in Macro. It was at a time when Utata was sick and my mother was sick at that same time. It was in 2013. We saw each other and we spoke. We spoke in depth, particularly from Nomzamo's side. She spoke with great sadness about what was happening today. She spoke about where did we go wrong. She said to me, why is it so difficult for people to walk a straight line? For the first time, I saw her looking vulnerable because of the sadness. The illness of her husband and the illness of a friend really and truly touched her very deeply. Her eyes welled up. I didn't hold her. I didn't hold her because I didn't want anybody else to see that fragility in her. Because the women I've called today, that I've just named, that were here, were all women who were leaders in their own right. Her concern had always been about people that were forgotten. Why have we forgotten women? I'd like to ask a question. How many of you know Pila Ndwandwe? How many of you know a young woman, Onati, can I have some water, please? That was kept naked for 10 days and then assassinated. How many of you know Rita Ntanga? Excuse me. June Mlangeni, Mangeleza, Mabart, Barbara Hogan, Cindy Bagley, Lydia Hompe, Esther Barso, Rika Hodgson. I can go on and on. And here I want to challenge the ANC. I want to ask you directly, why is it that you put weak women at the head of women's ministries? It's time you got serious about what you're doing. Let's peel off all the scabs we have and let's repair this country. It's our job to do it. We cannot, we've been hearing since last week, Monday, about Nomzamo's resilience and everything that she stood for. Can we take up the cudgels as a tribute to a woman that strived for freedom? Thank you.
Madikizela Mandela. Uliqhawe, qhawe, 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 qhawe. Madikizela, qhawe. Mama wesizwe, qhawe lama qhawe. Uliqhawe, qhawe. Madikizela, qhawe. Mama wesizwe, qhawe lama qhawe. Not at all, 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 not at all. Makona banye bagi, abasibona sesikhululekile, sesikhululekile, umshoshaphansi, not at all, not at all. Makona banye bagi, abasibona sesikhululekile, sesikhululekile, umshoshaphansi, not at all, 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 not at all.
And of course, we're giving you the live visuals coming in from Constitutional Hill as the Nelson Mandela Foundation pays tribute to the late Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Also on the other side there, we have the unveiling in remembrance for the anti-apartheid struggle icon Winnie Madikizela. This is outside the headquarters in Johannesburg this morning. It is said that the wall will allow for members of the public to sign their own messages of condolences and support to Mum Winnie. Of course, that we're seeing there on the split screen there of ANC's spokesperson there. Also there just explaining exactly what that memorial wall will be.
SGI hitting the call, and we felt that maybe if we allow them space to also compete, host their staff, and we call on all other South Africans as well, whether it's young people at schools and all of that, to do their different paintings and deposit it on the tribute page that is there on the ANC's website as part of celebrating the life of Mama Winnie. So I'm going to hand over to the Secretary General, after which, or do we just go and open and then the Secretary General can speak afterwards? No? You can say a word or two, SG.
Well, good morning. I'm sure Pula has explained everything. We are going to continue celebrating the life of Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. And we appreciate what South Africans are doing all over the country, from all walks of life. We highly appreciate it, young and old, rich and poor, white and black. I think this is uniting South Africans. And I'm definitely sure what Mandela and Winnie Mandela fought for, a non-racial, non-sexist, united, democratic South Africa is what we envisaged. Moving forward, I'm sure we'll further consolidate the reunity and renewal of the African National Congress. So we're going to just say here, long live the spirit of Mama Winnie Madikizela. Long live the spirit of Comrade Albertina Sisulu. Long live the spirit of Oliver Tambo. Long live the spirit of Chris Hani. This is long live the spirit of Solomon Mahlangu in this April month. It's a month where we celebrate our icons, and we'll continue doing so the whole year. Not only celebrate the life of Comrade Nelson Mandela, but the lives of our women leaders, because they were not leaders of women, they were leaders of society, leaders of the ANC. Otherwise, we want to take this opportunity to thank you.
SG, we are also joined by the Secretary General of the Women's League. I'm just going to allow Dadembata, because part of the reason we had to wait, we wanted to make sure that there is also a veteran of the ANC who graces this occasion. Dadembata can say a word or two.
Oh, yes. The greatest pity is that nobody knew that there will come a time when actually, when she passes on, she'll be this important to everybody. She comes from a background which was very ugly and very strenuous. And she has lived through turmoil in a country where she was not being accepted. But right now, as the world has seen, she has stood up and she has been very strong. Like all mothers, she believed in what she was doing was right. And nature and the people of the world will agree with that. Thank you.
We are now going to just open space What do Can we just open for the media so that the people of South Africa can see in front of us?
All right, just coming out there of that remembrance wall there. We're crossing now live to the Constitutional Hill, where the Nelson Mandela Foundation is honouring Mum Winnie Madikizela today. Currently on the podium is former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel. We cross live.
Ministers Khadebe and Lord Glo, Uncle George, all of our friends and comrades who are here. I was pounced upon by Sillo. I was minding my own business, so forgive me. I think that the importance of this day, marking 100 days to the centenary of Madiba's birth, is important, but there's just one other date I'd like to bring into our memory bank. And that is that today marks the 25th anniversary since the assassination of Comrade Chris Hani. You see, one of the reasons why today is important in the memory of Mum Winnie is also to remind ourselves of what has gone before. The author Milan Kundera says that the struggle against power is the struggle of memory against forgetting. And we must always engage in that struggle so that those words that Madiba uttered at his inauguration, never, never, and never again, are not forgotten words associated with a single speech in May of 1994. It should shape the break with the oppressive past that we've heard about played out on this very site and what we must build for the future. And it's in taking that and the lessons from Mum Winnie's life that we begin to understand what that struggle is about. You see, that harrowing tale that she tells in 491 Days of how she sought that inner strength and the journey that she went on. And I said to priests last week, Bishop, you sometimes warn us of hell, but you don't tell us what it's actually about. If you want to understand hell, those 491 days are the story of hell. But it's in passing through that Mum Winnie developed that inner core of strength that we so all admire, that made her somewhat unmanageable, but it gave her the strength because she understood then that the reliance is upon herself and that inner core of strength. And in looking back on her life and engaging in that struggle against forgetting, it is that we seek to take forward out of her life. Because she always had her ear to the ground. Hers was an ongoing struggle on behalf of others. It was a struggle for the downtrodden. It was a struggle for the poor. It was turning the worst adversity into a struggle. It was the tale of a banishment that she turned into acts of love and kindness by establishing a clinic and a soup kitchen for the people who were forgotten in that horrible place that didn't even have a name until the community named it Padakashla. It is that inner core of strength that each one of us must try and discover in ourselves and then join up and ask how we take the struggles forward. Comrade Tokyo Sekhwale, and whose stead I stand here this morning, told an interesting story of how many people had given Mam Winnie money, but it was never for Mam Winnie. It just flowed through her hands like sand because it was always for others. That is how she lived. It was a life of unselfishness and a life in service. And in taking that forward and in remembering this day and in asking about our own responsibilities into the future, we're reminded of the words written by the author Edmund Burke, who said, society is a partnership between those who have gone before, those who are alive, and those who are not yet born. And those of us who are alive take the lessons from the lives of those who've gone before. We live it out now so that we build a different future for our children. It's that kind of responsibility that we can never walk away from. It's that kind of responsibility that we are imbued with because of the life of Winnie Madikizela Mandela and how selflessly she gave and how she cajoled us into action. And in understanding that, you know, is one other part of her. Sometimes people say, Ungani, they say, don't speak badly because we must all be united. One of the things I learned from Mam Winnie is that unity is forged in struggle. If you don't wage struggle, you neither need unity nor will you find it. You must engage in struggle. And part of our responsibility is to struggle against those things that Mampama talked about that we observe as wrong so that we can right it, because we know we have responsibility not just to ourselves, but to those who are not yet born. That's the partnership that we seek to develop. That's the partnership whose lessons we draw out of the life of Mam Winnie. Lala Gutolo, Kawela Makawe. Rest in peace, our mother. You have served us well, but you've provided us with the lessons to take forward. Aluta continua.
A great lesson you've left us with, Mr. Trevor Manuel. Let us be the society that we desire. Let us learn from our predecessors, be the living example for those who are yet to come. I'd like to welcome to speak on behalf of the foundation, Naledi Chirwa.
Sanbonani, Ninjani. I greet you all in the name of a hero, of a storm, of a volcano, of a hero that lives in all of us, of our political conscience, of our fighter, Umamnomzamu Winifred Zanyiwe Madikizela Mandela. And I'm going to be short really today. I just want to remind us that, like she said last year, South Africa is a country in crisis. We are in crisis because black women still can't breathe. Black women still can't breathe. I'm here to remind you that black women in townships are still subjected to working in retail shops and earning 2,500 Rand per month. I'm here to remind you that domestic workers can't report their rape cases that have been happening for years because they are scared that they will lose their jobs. I'm here to remind you about Banyana Banyana. I'm here to remind you about Portia Mudise, who has scored more international goals than any soccer player and yet has not received any recognition from this country. I'm here to remind you about Rose War, about the woman who fought at Rose University fighting against rape and yet got excluded for life. I'm here to remind you about Fees Must Fall activists who are in jail as we speak, some who are going in and out of court cases. I'm here to remind you about girls living in rural areas who don't have access to clinics, girls who don't have access to safe reproductive health. I'm here to remind you about us, the fact that we can't breathe. We can't breathe in corporate worlds. We can't breathe with the law. We can't breathe in our political spaces. We can't breathe in our homes. We can't breathe in taxi ranks. We can't breathe. And if we are serious about carrying the legacy and the baton of Mama Nomzamo, we will ensure that from today onwards, no HR department will function as long as women earn less than their male counterparts. We will ensure that sanitary towels are not a dream for some girls. We will ensure that safe abortions are accessible to us and that black girls don't have to wait on waiting lists for 3 months until they can't have their safe abortions. We will ensure that queer women don't have to pay with their lives to exist. We will ensure that lesbian women don't have to die for them to exist. We will ensure that there's a sex court for sex crimes, for women who've been raped. We are tired of rape crimes being treated the same as cell phone thuggery and thieves. It must come to an end. That is the only way we will celebrate Mama Nomzamo. The land is still not in our hands. We still don't have economic freedom. We still can't afford taxis. There's many girls who would have loved to be here, but abana mali taxi. So we also have to start moving from these spaces back into our townships and rural areas. Because Mama Nomzamo is alive. She's alive and she's living. She's the very woman who stripped naked to cease fire at Wits University. She's alive. And we have to start seeing her. Because there has not been any justice for her or any woman in this country who has wanted to speak out and be bold. Thank you so much for coming. But I truly hope that honoring Mama Nomzamo will go beyond ceremonies and one night and one day events. I hope that we'll start celebrating her in our homes and ensuring that patriarchy suffocates until it dies, and capitalism suffocates until it dies, and rape suffocates until it dies, because black women can't breathe. Thank you.
Naledi, with women like you, we will breathe. And we will remind the world that we are enough. And we will remind the world that we do not have to beg to just be. And we will remind the world that we are worthy, we are powerful. And Mama indeed has not died, she has multiplied. And she is in every single one of us. And we have a greater responsibility to be the love, the freedom, the power that we want to be. From one powerful woman to another, ladies and gentlemen, representing the Ministry of Public Service Administration, please can you allow us to welcome Minister Ayanda Dlodlo onto stage.
That is going to be a very hard act to follow. That was one fiery young lady. Magubenjalo, magubenjalo, gute gubenguna pagate, gute gubenguna pagate. I'm not very good at following protocol. I am politically trained, but I am not very good at following protocol. But I will start by recognizing Usapho Mandela as represented by my young sister Undileka and Umam Grasa. The foundation as represented by Usillo, who seems to think I'm part of the foundation's furniture. My colleague who calls me college, Jeff Khadebe, many friends and families of this beautiful nation of ours. I had not prepared anything for this. I had thought I'd speak off the cuff, but I was going through an article that I had written for the New York Times, and I thought, what a wonderful opportunity for me to share that, because it speaks to the essence of the woman that we're remembering today. And I will just read how some in our world have lost an opportunity to know this phenomenal warrior of the South African struggle, now that death has robbed them of the opportunity to know the mother of the nation. What death has also done through, though, is deliver this flower of our revolution to our lounges, bedrooms, and all spaces where you watch news as they unfold. Death has given you the opportunity to interact with the mother of our nation through prose, reports, tweets, and other social media posts, opinion pieces, eulogies, dinner table chats, and random discussions with people who share in our grief and those who actually don't. I had the pleasure of sitting with Mama when the documentary of her life was produced and premiered in Johannesburg last year. Anyone who wants to know Winnie Madikizela Mandela should watch this documentary. You will understand the human fallibility, her anxiety, her feelings of betrayal, her love for the people, her commitment to the liberation of our country, her zeal in keeping the names of our leaders in exile and in prison on the lips of every child in our country. That is the Winnie, with the unflinching spirit of no surrender. In her, Madinoche lived. Through her work, Nandi emerged. She carried the baton of Helen Joseph, Rahima Musa. She exuded the resilience and supportive nature of Nogutela Lutuli, the love of Coretta Scott King, the great baby sister to Mama, my other mom, Grasa Machel, a liberation fighter in her own right. She was the ultimate soldier who feared nothing and stared death right back in the face. Like the great Betty Shabazz, the great American educator and activist who happened to be married to Malcolm X, she never allowed her own light to be diminished by the powerful man she was married to. When men who would be intimidated by the greatness that they were standing next to Mama Winnie and Betty Shabazz blossomed and blazed their own paths, they found their own generational missions and with unapologetic vigor fulfilled it. She lived a life of platinum grade in service to the people in a bronze world of pain and imperfection. We remember her, as we remember her, we must remember her as Mama Winnie, the brave, the one who stared death in the face and feared nothing. She was the mother hen who protected her children in Brantford, Mamelodi, Soweto, Guguletu, Kwamashu, and every corner of our beautiful home of warriors. She was as vulnerable and feminine as she was brave and masculine. We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustices of our past, honor those who suffered for justice in our land, respect those who worked to build and develop our country. The Constitution of our land enjoins us all to honor her and respect her for what she did for us and humanity at large. We will miss your enchanting smile, your loving self, and all that you did to liberate us. Hamba kahle Mkhonto, hamba kahle sotsha lika Luthuli, hamba kahle flower of the revolution, hamba kahle mother of our nation. Ngiyabonga.
From the Ministry of Public Service Administration to the Ministry of Energy, please put your hands together and welcome on stage Minister Jeff Khadebe.
Thank you, Onati. Firstly, let me acknowledge the foundation, as well as Mam Grasa, Ndilega, and all the Mandela family and Madikizela who are present here this morning. And also to acknowledge Mam Grasa and the Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo, my colleague, Ayanda Jojo, and my former colleague, Trevor Manuel, and all mourners who are present here this morning. I'm honored to address you this morning as a tribute to Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. The late Mama Winnie, my family, and I shared a very special relationship. Above these personal relations, Mama Winnie was my political inspiration, a beacon of hope, and a mentor. There are occasions where my family and I have sought her guidance and wisdom to traverse many of the challenges of our lives. I'm also honored that I've been invited by an institution which preserves not only the legacy of our iconic leader, but also his values. Although the foundation was established to preserve the legacy of one man, Nelson Mandela, it has become to consider all those who shared his values, which have now been accepted by many the world over. Let me also thank our President, President Cyril Ramaphosa, for declaring a 10-day national period of mourning. The African National Congress has also released a schedule of events as part of this 10-day mourning period. We still have a few days to go, but already through the length and breadth of our country, there has been a very impressive show of appreciation of the role that Mama Winnie has played in the struggle for the liberation of all of South Africa's people. Throughout the week, there have been organized tributes to the mother of the nation and outpouring of condolences to the Mandela and the Madikizela families. On Friday, various musicians paid tribute to Mama Winnie in a very moving concert in Baseline in Joburg. Yesterday, there was a Methodist Church dedication in honor of Mrs. Mandela, Madikizela Mandela, in Soweto in Midlands. It is a tribute that celebrates one of the best human relations stories of that century. There is in South Africa an overwhelming sense that today we are reuniting the two icons who were larger than life in heavenly matrimony. It is like we are saying, as there were powerful forces in the world, in this temporary world, they are now being joined to be equally powerful forces in the world yonder. As Mandela himself once quipped, we can be assured that the ANC branch in heaven is growing and its leadership is being strengthened by the arrival of Mama Winnie. I'm saying this deliberately to lay a basis for my congratulations to the foundation for having safeguarded the legacy of our icon, Nelson Mandela, in many trying times. What the foundation has done with its limited resources is to champion the unity that was forged by President Nelson Mandela. Many tributes also have observed that Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela spoke truth to power. She never wavered to state her mind in correcting the wrongs and reprimanding the wayward. I have also found the Nelson Mandela Foundation to have taken this route by not flinching in its responsibility to speak truth to power. That truth might sometimes be uncomfortable to some, but the foundation should not be cowed by the few to whom this truth is uncomfortable. Weak leadership survives on short-term populism. I have found our icon, Nelson Mandela, Mama Winnie, and the foundation, though popular in their own right, avoiding populism as a tool of mobilization. I am not privy to Mama Winnie's family plans about preserving her legacy. I can only hope that a legacy so rich cannot be left unpreserved, not so much for its historic reality, but also for its ability to shine like a lighthouse that will guide future generations. For Mama Winnie's legacy to be that lighthouse, we need to be tireless in our efforts to set records straight. Having excelled in the legacy preservation of the late icon Mandela, the foundation has laid a template from which any future considerations of the preservation of Mama Winnie's legacy can be learned. This should not be done because of the relationship between Nelson Mandela and Mama Winnie, but because of the universal appeal of the Mandela Foundation. Seldom do nations hold their heroes and heroines dear as the foundation has done. It is not always that a South African institution can be categorized as international best practice. We have always thought what is international best practice is found outside our African continent, usually in Euro-American examples. I'm of the view that the Nelson Mandela Foundation is that international best practice entity for legacy preservation. Mama Winnie's passing away is being mourned by political parties across the ideological divide. Leaders of South African political parties have done this by physically visiting a Mandela home in Orlando West, Soweto. Others have sent messages of condolences. That maturity to look beyond the political divides opens a whole new hope for our country, which had a very divided past and sometimes robust political contestations. However, it will reduce Mama Winnie's death as a contribution to national unity if it is expressed more in inter-party and less inside her movement that she lived and died for. The internal discords in the ANC are healthy sometimes, but once they compromise the unity that is needed, particularly at this juncture in our history, gives an advantage to opposition parties which have set aside their own differences with the ANC. In conclusion, I wish to thank the Nelson Mandela Foundation for having organized this event. If there's an organization that needed to pay a tribute, it was this organization that bears the name of Nelson Mandela. I thank you. I would like to take this opportunity at this juncture to introduce our Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic, Raymond Zondo, a man who is a formidable lawyer. Some call him a conservative judge, but he is a fair judge, a fearless, independent judge who got into the bench in 1997 in the Labour Court and later became the Judge President of the Labour Court and later was admitted as a judge of the Gauteng High Court. When I was a Minister of Justice, it was during that time that the Judicial Service Commission appointed him and recommended him to be a judge of the Constitutional Court. And as we know, recently he was appointed and elected to be the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic. And we know his task at hand at the moment. You can be rest assured that he is a very fair man of the law. With those words, I'd like to call upon Deputy Chief Justice Zondo.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I'm not as tall as Minister Jeff Hadebe, so I will have to lower this. Thank you, Program Director, and thank you to Minister Jeff Radebe for those very pleasing words with which you have introduced me. I did notice that when you acknowledged me, you said Chief Justice, but when you introduced me, you did say Deputy Chief Justice. Let me begin by acknowledging the Mandela family and the Madikizela family. Let me also acknowledge the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Let me acknowledge the ministers that I see who are present here and former ministers that are here. Let me acknowledge many women who are here with us and all compatriots and ladies and gentlemen. It is a special honor and privilege to me to have been invited to join you on this very special occasion and to make a few remarks to pay tribute to someone as special to the majority of this country as Mam Winnie Madikizela Mandela. It was with shock and disbelief that I learned last Monday that the mother of the nation was no more. Although I was aware that she was not well, I thought that having attended an Easter, a Good Friday church service for a number of hours, she was not somebody who could leave us so quickly. I join all compatriots, the peoples of Africa and the world, in sending condolences to her daughters, Zinzi and Zenani, to the entire Mandela family, to the Madikizela family, and indeed to all the people of South Africa, because today we are gathered here to pay tribute to somebody who was very special to all of us as South Africans. She was called the mother of the nation, and deservedly so. Mam Winnie's loss is not just a loss to the families of Mandela and Madikizela. It is a loss to all of us. We as a nation have lost a fearless freedom fighter, a brave leader, and yet a loving parent, a loving mother, and a loving grandmother. Indeed, we have lost a caring community leader. For many years, when many leaders were in prison or exile, Mam Winnie Madikizela Mandela was one of those who gave us in the country a beacon of hope. She was one of those who made sure that the struggle continued. She made sure, together with many others, that we remembered that there was racism and apartheid that needed to be defeated. Her fearlessness inspired many of us as young people in schools and universities, because she was able to face the police in the eyes with all the might that they had, and deal with them in a way that sent the message that she was saying to them, you do not scare me. You do not intimidate me, because I stand for justice. You stand for injustice. I stand for what is right. You stand for evil, and evil will never prevail over what is right. We gather this morning to pay tribute to a selfless woman, to a selfless leader who was always rooted in her people, who was always among her people. Whenever there were challenges in communities, whenever there were disasters in communities, whenever different communities waged their struggle, she was there with them. She was always one of the first ones to be with the communities, to help them, and to show them that they are not alone. There was no place that she did not go to in order to deal with community issues. She went to informal settlements, she went to squatter camps, and throughout that period, she was with the people, and she made sure that they remained hopeful that in the end, the evil of apartheid would be defeated. We all know the suffering that she was put through by the apartheid government. She was banned, she was banished, she was incarcerated, she was humiliated, but throughout that period, she stood firm and in effect told the apartheid government that you shall not break me. You shall not break me, because apartheid will be defeated. Even when, during the states of emergency of the 1980s, it seemed very dark, and a lot of activists were in detention, she was quite clear that the struggle will have to go on because apartheid would be defeated. She raised her children without her husband. And throughout that period, she never complained because she appreciated the sacrifices that had to be made in order to advance our struggle for freedom. Mam Winnie spoke her mind. It did not matter who you were. If she did not agree with you, she would say so. And on an occasion such as this, we need to reflect whether, in honor of Mam Winnie, we are going to end up with words and words and words only, or whether each and every one of us is going to deeply reflect on what it is that we need to do differently from now on in honor of Mam Winnie Madikizela Mandela, together with many others who have passed on, who sacrificed a lot for our country. She will be reporting to many stalwarts of our struggle about what is going on in this country. And while we have made advances in many respects, she will not have a very good report to give about what we are doing. She will not have a very good report to give because we men are raping children, because we men are raping our grandmothers, because we men do not respect the rights of children. She will not give a very good report about us because she will tell them that the level of corruption in this country has reached proportions that no one could ever have imagined before. And she will say, this is not the kind of country that we sacrificed for. She is going to report on what we are doing about corruption. And we need to reflect on whether what we are doing about corruption is effective. And if it is effective, why is corruption rising every day? What do we need to do? A lot needs to change in our mindset. We need to draw from the fearlessness that Mam Winnie had, that Mam Winnie taught us, and use that in order to change the situation about corruption in our country. Corruption in our country is deepening because we are fearful. If I'm a member of parliament and I must hold the executive accountable, I am scared because I still want to rise in the party. I still want to be deputy minister. I still want to be a minister. And I'm not going to play my oversight role because in that way, I'm going to limit my career prospects. If I am a minister, I'm going to turn a blind eye because I'm going to lose this position. We need to take the lesson of fearlessness that Mam Winnie left us and say to ourselves, what is it that I am going to do from now on that will demonstrate fearlessness in order to make my own contribution to changing this society to be the society that Mam Winnie and many others who have passed on and those who are still with us fought for. Corruption remains a serious cancer in our society. And unless we demonstrate fearlessness in relation to dealing with it, many other stalwarts who are still among us will, when they pass on, report or give bad reports about us. Many years ago, after we achieved our democracy, and some people said we would have corruption in this country and mentioned other countries in Africa and said we would be like them, I said it would not happen, not in this country. But I can't say that anymore. But we need to go beyond speaking. We need to act. Do we have the courage, if I am a member of parliament, to say, I would rather face consequences with my party rather than not do my job and not perform my constitutional duties of oversight and hold the executive accountable? Are we prepared to say, in honor of Mam Winnie, in honor of many others who have gone before her, who have sacrificed so much for us to enjoy the freedom that we enjoy, are we prepared to say, let me suffer if I suffer, but I am standing up in order to make sure that I make my own contribution to the realization of the society that Mam Winnie stood for, of the society that Mam Winnie fought for. Unless and until we are prepared to make those sacrifices, we are not going to make much headway in changing this society into the kind of society that our Constitution envisages, into the kind of society that Mam Winnie fought for. And we must decide whether, after we have laid her to rest, there's nothing we are going to do differently. We are just going to go back to our jobs and do as we have always done. And of course, if we do that, the result will be the same. Corruption and other ills of our society will just continue. I think that the judiciary has been playing its role, and I have no doubt in my mind that it will continue to play its role. And all of us must play our role, because no single arm of the state can succeed in ridding our country of corruption unless we all come together and play our role. This is another way of saying, what shall we do? And within the time available, if we all recommit ourselves to dealing with issues of corruption, dealing with issues of gender, then, and we give ourselves 120% to that, then we will go somewhere. We must aim for a time when Mam Winnie and all our stalwarts who have passed on can in due course look back in our country and smile because of the progress we will have made in changing our country to be the kind of country that they fought for, to be the kind of country that they suffered for, to be the kind of country that we all dream of, a country of equality, a country of non-racism, a country of non-sexism, and a country that upholds human rights, a country that upholds the rule of law, a country that upholds the independence of the judiciary. The judiciary will continue to honor all our stalwarts, and it will honor Mam Winnie by making sure that it carries out its constitutional duty to adjudicate cases without fear, without favor, and without prejudice. We ask all of you to join us in doing that. In conclusion, I say to the Madikizela and Mandela families, thank you for giving us Mam Winnie. She was wonderful to this country. I don't know if we have honored her properly, but she has done a lot for us. To be where we are, to be in the positions in which we are, she, together with many others, suffered and sacrificed quite a lot. It is therefore proper that from this day we recommit ourselves to doing whatever is necessary to change the situation in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Justice Zondo. Psychologists always say that when it comes to childbearing and being a parent, you must always be cognizant of the time you allocate to each of your children, especially to the older ones who have had to accept sharing you with the younger ones, because to a child, you are their favorite person in the world. To usapho lakwaMandela nesizukulu, we asked of you something that we would never want to be asked of us, for you to share graciously abazali benu, notamkhulu wenu,